Hey guys, Austin here again. It's been a little while since I've done a video. I apologize for that. I just really haven't had a lot of time. I do have some new upcoming videos. I have the K7XX that's going to be up for review, K701. Probably do the I have the HD700 that I'm going to review as well. A couple of different IEM models. That's really all I've got lined up recently. But that's not the focus of today's video. Today I'm going to be talking about a headphone amp that I've had on loan for about a week now so far. These are just like some initial impressions of it. The full written review is going to be on Headfi. When that's published, I'm going to post it below, which should be later this week sometime. That headphone amp will be the SPL Phonitor Mini here. I have this on loan from their US distributor, and they've been kind enough to let me borrow it for about 2 weeks to demo it. And I have pretty much been using this non-stop recently. My main amp used to be the SPL Auditor, which I used for my T1 and any of my higher impedance headphones. But the thing is that I wanted a neutral, solid state headphone amp that's good for driving like a wide range of headphones. So I opted to try this out to see how this would be. And I gotta say, it sounds largely, well, exactly the same as the Auditor. If there is any sound quality improvements, I don't really notice them. But it could drive like mostly everything I could throw at it, short of maybe the most powerful, more power demanding planar magnetic headphones, which I don't have on hand. I just testing whatever I got. I mainly use this to drive my HD700, which I have down here. But this will be in another video. This will be the next video after the Phonitor Mini. We'll talk more about the powering later on. So we'll start off with the build of this thing. This thing is like a tank. It's heavy. It's solid. It looks like it's all made from one piece of metal. From what I could tell, the case is one piece that they've just folded over. And I could tell that with... Actually, it's not. The top and the back that goes around to the connections is actually a separate piece, while the underside and the sides are all one. And that's also part of the front. But we'll get to the connections first. It offers RCA and balanced XLR inputs. With the RCA, in their manual it says that they raise the normal RCA volume to plus 12 decibels to be studio level. And see, when I was using the RCA inputs, I was using it from my Bioelectric V200, which takes the XLR signal and just converts it to RCA. So that's already like a 6 decibel increase going into this, and then this increases it 12 on top of that. So when I was testing between XLR and RCA, XLR was like a lot quieter than the RCA. I guess an example would be when I'm using HD700, the volume is normally about maybe about 8 o'clock on there with the XLR. With the RCA, it's way lower, probably closer to... It's near minimum. That's just because of how much gain there is. But of course, I know there being so much gain like that, that I don't get a full range of usage of the volume dial. But overall, I mean, between the XLR and RCAs, there's no sound quality difference from what I can tell. It is nice that this guy does let you use a fuse. That's for all you who like to believe that upgraded fuses do anything. But I didn't disassemble that to get to the fuse. I'm not going to try with that, because I don't know exactly how that comes apart. Begin to the front here, we have the XLR RCA inputs. There is the matrix on and off, which controls the crossfeed feature. There is the mute, mono, and stereo button. With that button, whenever you want to unplug a set of headphones, you got to swap it to mono. If you leave it on, it can cause possible short circuiting. There's a crossfeed, low, medium, and high. There's the angle, 40, 22, and 30 degrees. And then there's the center channel, center image loudness, which is negative 1.2 decibels off, which is mean that there's no attenuation to the center image, or there's negative 0.6 decibels. Personally, I use the negative 1.2 because I've noticed with crossfeed, it tends to squish the image inward more, and by flipping it to the negative 1.2, it sounds more expansive. You do have to turn the volume just a little bit up more to make it sound just as loud because of that center image being cut down a little bit, but that's not so bad at all. With the crossfeed, low, medium, and high, there are differences, but they're not as massive as like some of the software crossfeeds in FooBar, like the Meyer Audio one, which I know makes everything sound super congested and smaller. I just keep it on low. High is just a little bit more expanded. Medium, I couldn't really tell a whole lot of difference on there. If you're playing stuff, maybe like the Beatles remasters, the stereo ones, which had a lot of the hard panning, high on this really does help with that quite a bit. I've noticed that it doesn't sound so wonky anymore with that. The angle, 30 and 40 sounded pretty close to me, while 22 on there sounded really, really narrow. So that's kind of goofy to me. With the angles though, they recommend in the manual that if you have headphones that have angled drivers, to set it to either 33 or like 40 degrees. I keep it at 40 because it sounds wider. I did notice though that when using my T1s with this on the 22 degree angle, it sounded really, really weird. Is like, I don't even know how to describe it exactly. The soundstage is squished in, and it feels like it's coming more straight at you, as opposed to just being stereo with being decreased. So that's really funky. And I already touched on the center balance on there. So with this amp, like I said, sound quality is pretty much the exact same as the auditor. It's really, really neutral. There is a lot of extension on both ends. Oh, and before we touch more on that, I guess I gotta talk about the power output, because there's a lot of confusion on that online. It's supposed to be 1 watt at 600 ohms and 2 watts at 300 ohms. I found online that by emailing SPL, they gave me more power ratings for a wider range of headphones, and I didn't print it out to use in this little video overview, but at 120 ohms, it's 3.7 watts, I believe, and at, I think it's 40 ohms, they had it at like 2.7 watts of power. So this thing should be able to drive anything like the HE400, 400i I would think, 400S, LCD2, LCD3, those really aren't too terribly power hungry. It should be able to drive them fine. Probably won't drive them as good as like shit audio Lear 2 at all. That I'm looking to get in the future. Now I'm going way off tangent like I was doing these videos. Like I said, sound quality alone on this thing, it's pretty neutral, or not pretty, it's pretty, there's like no coloration to it at all. Upper frequencies are actually fairly smooth. I know most people said that the Phonitor, the Auditor, and there's just those two were actually pretty bright sounding amps, which I don't hear at all. I know the same could be said of like the shit Magni 2. People say it's really bright. I don't hear that either. It sounds pretty neutral to me. Maybe because you're accustomed to maybe a colored amp or a smoother amp, so when you get something that's neutral, it doesn't have any of the coloration or smoothness, it does sound brighter. This amp really is not. Signature alone, it's not signature alone. The resolution is really good on this amp. Transparency is pretty much the same as Auditor. So I guess for sound quality alone, to describe this thing is basically the Auditor headphone amp, sound quality wise. Major difference is that this thing does have the 0.818% output impedance, which is much better. Auditor and the original Phonitor had 9 ohm, which was crazy. You couldn't use anything really below 80 ohms, but even then it was getting kind of iffy, because I know that my DT1350 sounded kind of off on the auditor. So did the HD700, even though that's 150 ohms, it sounded a little funky. But it's totally different. This thing is like, drives them like a champ. All my headphones, it drives great. I've tried everything on it, short of some of the IEMs that I have, but those ones don't require much power, so I'm pretty confident it'll drive those well. I noticed that when driving the Fidelio X2 on here, the bass does tighten up considerably, more than what it did on the V200, but that alone could be attributed to the V200 having a bit of a slight bass boost and smoother treble like that. The overall signature of that amp is warmer, and I know a lot of the guys on Change Star don't like that, so I like the V200. It's just, I wanted something neutral. So, that being said, I believe I've touched on everything I've wanted to touch on with this headphone amp. $850, it's already $150 cheaper than what the Auditor was when that came out. And if you're looking to get the Phonitor, but you don't want to spend like $2,000 on an amp, and you want all the customization of the soundstage, I think this amp is definitely worth it at $850. I probably will buy this from the distributor sometime this week. We will see. But otherwise, I guess that is it for my little overview. I guess one last thing I could touch on is that when I got this, there are no feet on the bottom of the amp at all. So I have a rubber computer mouse pad resting. It covers the whole bottom underneath of it on my stack of gear. It's sitting right on top of my Audio GD rock right now. And that's where this guy's been sitting. The rock has been unplugged. But yeah, I guess that's really all I have to talk to. You guys have any questions or concerns at all about the review? You need to know anything else about the amp, where to get it, maybe what headphones it can drive, or how other headphones sound on it, I could definitely help you with that. Just hit me up in the comment box below. I apologize in advance for not always answering the comments. I get kind of caught up in my day-to-day life doing other things. But yeah, that's really about it, guys. Hit me up if you have any more questions. This is Austin. Have a good day. Adios.